There are two kinds of mothers in this world. Ones who protect their daughters, and ones who collect from them. I spent 34 years figuring out which kind I had. My name is Fiona Foster. I'm a single mom. I make a decent living. And for 5 years, my family treated my bank account like a buffet table. Help yourself. No tip required. I planned a family trip to Bali. I booked 6 flights, a resort, activities for 2 weeks. I paid for every dollar of it. My 8-year-old Owen had been counting down the days on a calendar taped to his bedroom wall. 3 days before our flight, my mom Gloria walked into my house, held up my bank card, the one I lent her 3 months ago, and told me I wasn't coming. "Vanessa's kids don't want to see you," she said. My father stood behind her, silent. My son stood behind me, listening. And the card that paid for everyone's seat on that plane sat in my father's hand, like it belonged there. What I did next, quietly, without raising my voice, turned my mother's world upside down. Before we get into that, please take a moment to like and subscribe. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Now, let me go back to the beginning. 6 months ago, when I made the mistake of being generous. 6 months of planning. That's what went into the trip. 6 months of comparing airlines, reading resort reviews at midnight, building a spreadsheet with activities Owen would love. Snorkeling, the monkey forest in Ubud, a cooking class where he could learn to make fried rice. Owen had a countdown calendar taped to his bedroom wall. Every morning he peeled off a square and announced the number at breakfast like a sportscaster. 14 sleeps, Mom. 11 sleeps, Mom. That calendar was the first thing he saw when he opened his eyes and the last thing he touched before bed. 3 days before our flight, I was in the living room folding swim trunks into his suitcase. Owen crouched beside me, pressing a cartoon temple sticker onto the front pocket. He'd picked it out himself at the dollar store. "For good luck," he told me, smoothing it flat with both thumbs. Then came the knock. I opened the door and there was my mother, Gloria Foster, 62 years old, standing on my porch like she owned it. Behind her, my father, Dennis, 64, hands in his jacket pockets. His face was red. He wouldn't look at me. Gloria stepped inside without waiting. "We had a family discussion," she said. Her voice had that flat, boardroom quality she used when she'd already decided something and was only informing you of the verdict. "You won't be coming to Bali. Vanessa's kids don't want to see you and Owen on this trip." I looked at my father. He pulled his right hand from his pocket. In it, my Chase debit card. The emerald green one. The one I'd handed my mother 12 weeks earlier when she called saying she needed to cover a specialist copay and her wallet was in Dennis's truck. That sticker on Owen's suitcase, a little cartoon temple he'd picked out himself, stared up at me while my mother dismantled his summer. "This isn't a debate, Fiona," Gloria said. "It's decided." I didn't yell. I didn't cry. Ish, I want you to understand that. Because my mother was counting on one of those two things. She'd rehearsed her little speech for whichever version of me showed up. The weeping daughter she could comfort into compliance. The angry daughter she could dismiss as unhinged. She was not prepared for the daughter who asked questions. "Who decided this?" I said. Gloria blinked. "The family." "Which members? When? Where was the discussion?" "Fiona." "And why do you have my bank card?" She hadn't expected that pivot. Her mouth opened, then closed. Dennis shifted his weight behind her. I could feel him wanting to say something the way you feel a storm wanting to break. Pressure, humidity, silence. "I'm your mother," Gloria said, straightening. "I needed it for a few things." "A few things?" I repeated it exactly the way she said it. Flat. Factual. Let the words sit in the air. "After everything I've done for you," she continued, and there it was. The script. The guilt playbook she'd been running since I was 15. "You should be grateful Vanessa even lets her kids around Owen. He can be a lot." Dennis's jaw tightened. For 1/2 second, I saw his eyes lift toward mine. He wanted to speak. Gloria glanced at him. One look, quick as a blade. And his gaze dropped again. I need that card back, I said. We'll deal with it later. Now. Gloria held my stare for 3 long seconds, then turned and walked to the door. Dennis set the card on the entry table without a word. The green edge caught the hallway light.
The door closed. Their car started. Gravel crunched. I stood in my living room for 30 seconds, perfectly still. Then I picked up my phone and opened my banking app. The screen loaded, and that's when I saw the charges. 3 months of transactions. That's what scrolled past my thumb as I stood in the hallway, card still warm on the table. March 14th, Sawyer's Steakhouse, $187. That's in Ridgemont, the town where Vanessa lives. Not our town. March 22nd, Lavender Day Spa, $680. I have never been to a spa in my life. April 3rd, Target, $290. April 9th, Amazon, $148. April 17th, Amazon again, $212. April 30th, a boutique called Thread and Bloom, $94. All shipping addresses I didn't recognize. It kept going. Smaller charges peppered between the big ones, gas stations near Vanessa's neighborhood, a nail salon, a drive-through. My mother hadn't used the card once in our zip code, $3,200. That's how much my trust was worth to my mother. A spa day, some steakhouse dinners, and a handful of Amazon boxes shipped to my sister's porch. My hands didn't shake because I was scared. They shook because my body was processing what my mind hadn't caught up to yet. This wasn't an oversight. This wasn't forgetfulness. Gloria hadn't forgotten to return the card. She'd kept it on purpose, and she'd been living off it like a second income. Then I checked my email. One notification from the Padmasari Resort in Ubud, time-stamped 9 days ago. Booking modification request, denied. Someone had called the resort and requested the removal of 2 guests, Fiona Foster and Owen Foster, from the reservation. The request was denied because only the primary account holder could authorize changes. And the caller had identified herself as Mrs. Mercer, my sister's married name. I set the phone down on the counter, slowly, the way you set down something that might break if you hold it too long. The charges were bad, but the booking, that was the blueprint. Let me go back further, 5 years, because the trip didn't start this. I was 29 when my marriage ended. Owen was 3. We moved back to Harlow, the small town outside Asheville where I grew up, and I rented a 1-bedroom apartment above a hardware store. Owen slept in a crib next to my bed. I slept in shifts. My mother's first comment when I came home, "Well, if you'd been easier to live with, maybe he'd have stayed." She said it at the kitchen table, buttering toast, like she was reading the weather. Dennis was right there. He looked at his coffee. I didn't answer. I had a 3-year-old who needed breakfast, and fighting my mother before 8 a.m. felt like a luxury I couldn't afford. So I just didn't. And that became the pattern. Not because I was afraid of her, not because I wanted her approval, because I was running logistics, literally. I had a child to feed, a job to find, a life to rebuild. Every confrontation with Gloria cost time I didn't have. Paying was faster than arguing. Writing the check was quicker than hearing the lecture. I got hired as a logistics coordinator at a regional freight company. Steady pay, benefits. Not glamorous, but enough. And from the moment my first direct deposit hit, Gloria started asking. Dennis's car insurance, Vanessa's kids' school supplies, a new water heater for my parents' house, airline tickets so Vanessa could fly home for Easter, Thanksgiving groceries, Christmas presents, a dental crown for Gloria. I paid every time, not out of guilt, out of efficiency. It was the shortest path between the ask and the silence that followed. 5 years of that, and the numbers added up to something I hadn't bothered to calculate until 3 nights ago. $47,000. That's how much silence costs when you're the family payroll. Uncle Raymond was the only person who ever asked, "You doing okay, kid?" right after my divorce. I should have paid more attention to that. My sister Vanessa is 30. She married Todd Mercer at 20, had Brooke at the same age, and Chase 4 years later. Todd runs a small landscaping company. Good work, seasonal income, tight margins. And they live one town over in Ridgemont in a 3-bedroom ranch they can't quite afford. Vanessa hasn't worked outside the house in 6 years. She says she stays home for the kids, but Brooke is 10 and Chase is 6, both in school from 7:30 to 3. I'm not judging that. I'm stating it because it matters when you understand what Gloria calls need. Gloria decided early that Vanessa was the daughter who needed protection. Vanessa played into it beautifully, and I don't mean that with admiration. She had a radar for soft spots. She'd call Gloria crying about a power bill, then post a photo of new patio furniture the same week. She'd tell Gloria that Todd just isn't earning enough right now, and Gloria would redirect that complaint straight to me. Behind my back, Vanessa was more creative. She told Gloria that Owen was hard to manage on trips, that I acted superior at family dinners, that Owen once pushed Chase at a cookout, a thing that never happened. I know because Owen spent that entire cookout reading a Captain Underpants book in the corner of the porch. And then there was the booking. Vanessa had called the Padmasari Resort 9 days ago, identified herself as Mrs. Mercer, and asked them to remove me and Owen from the reservation. She'd gotten the resort name from the confirmation email I'd forwarded to Gloria, the one Gloria asked for so she could see the itinerary. Vanessa never asked how Owen was doing after being told his cousins didn't want to see him. She only asked for Wi-Fi passwords and spending money. She never asked how much the trip cost. She already knew she wasn't paying, and the idea started at Christmas dinner 6 months earlier. We were all at Gloria's house, me, Owen, my parents, Vanessa, Todd, Brooke, and Chase. The kind of dinner where the food is fine and the conversation is careful. Owen was talking about a project at school, countries of the world. His class had studied Indonesia that week. "Mom," he said, pulling on my sleeve, "there's a forest with monkeys, real monkeys. Can we go see them?" The table went quiet the way it always did when Owen said something enthusiastic. My family had a low tolerance for excitement that didn't belong to Vanessa's kids. "That's the monkey forest," I said, "in Ubud, Bali. Can we go?" I looked around the table. Gloria was cutting her ham. Dennis was chewing. Vanessa was scrolling her phone under the table. "What if we all went?" I said. "A family trip. I'll plan it. I'll cover the flights and the resort." Gloria looked up. "All of it? All of it?" She nodded once, like she was approving a purchase order. I spent the next 3 months building the trip. 6 round-trip tickets, Charlotte to Denpasar with a layover in Doha. A 2-week stay at the Padmasari Resort. Ocean view suites. Activities. Snorkeling at Ahmed. A sunrise hike at Mount Batur. The monkey forest for Owen. A cooking class. A temple tour. Vanessa's kids would stay with Todd's parents. Gloria said the flight was too long for little ones, which was fine by me. Total cost, $17,800, nearly every dollar in my vacation fund. I'd been building that account for 2 years. Owen taped his countdown calendar to the wall the day I told him, 42 squares. He peeled one off every morning, grinning like he'd won something. "Mom," he'd say, climbing into the car for school, "how many sleeps until the monkeys?" Every sign was there. I just didn't want to see them. 2 months before the trip, Vanessa texted asking me to forward the booking confirmation. "I want to check if the resort has a pool for the kids." Her kids weren't coming, but I forwarded it anyway. The resort name, the dates, the room numbers. I left out the confirmation code. I didn't think about why that mattered at the time. 1 month out, Gloria called asking for the resort's Wi-Fi password. We hadn't arrived yet. Wi-Fi passwords are posted at check-in. But I laughed it off. "I'll send it when we get there, Mom." 3 weeks before departure, Todd said something at a Sunday dinner that should have stopped me cold. "Maybe we should keep the group smaller," he said, passing the potatoes. "Less stress for everyone." I assumed he was talking about Brooke and Chase staying behind. I smiled and changed the subject. 2 weeks out, Gloria called again. "Which airline did you book?" I told her. "Flight numbers, departure time, the layover city. She asked follow-up questions like a journalist. I answered everyone. 1 week before the trip, Vanessa posted an Instagram story. New luggage, a matching sage green set. She tagged Todd. The caption said, "Ready for paradise." A palm tree emoji, a plane emoji. She didn't tag me. I noticed. I told myself it didn't matter. I found out later that the luggage cost $420. The charge appeared on my bank statement on the same date. From a retailer called Atlas and Pine. My sister bought her new suitcases for my trip with my money and posted them online without flinching. And the signs weren't hiding. They were standing in plain sight, waving. I just kept walking past them because stopping meant admitting something I wasn't ready to face yet. But Owen's question changed that. Owen was standing in the hallway when Gloria left. He hadn't come all the way out, just far enough to hear, the way kids do when they know something's wrong but aren't sure how much of it belongs to them. "Mom," his voice was small, "are we not going to Bali?" I turned around. He was holding his passport, the blue booklet I'd helped him practice holding like a grown-up the week before. His suitcase was behind him, temple sticker and all, half-zipped. I crouched down so my face was level with his. "You and I are going to Bali, I promise." "But Grandma said..." "Grandma doesn't decide this trip, Owen. I do. Because I'm the one who planned it, and I'm the one who paid for it." He stared at me for a few seconds. Then he nodded. Not because he understood the finances, but because he understood that his mother's voice was steady and her eyes were dry. And in his 8 years of experience, that combination meant she meant it. He hugged me. I held him until his breathing slowed. Then I sent him to brush his teeth. That night, after Owen fell asleep with his passport on the nightstand and his suitcase at the foot of his bed, I sat down at the kitchen table with my laptop. I opened a blank spreadsheet and started pulling records. Bank statements, Venmo history, old text messages where Gloria or Vanessa asked for money and I said yes without thinking twice. The column grew, year by year, line by line. Car insurance, school supplies, holiday groceries, dental work, water heater, airline tickets, birthday presents for kids who were never told the gifts came from me. $47,000. That's how much it costs to learn that generosity without boundaries is just exploitation with a thank you card, except there was never a thank you card. The next morning, after I dropped Owen at school, I sat at my kitchen table and went through every statement line by line. Not skimming, reading. The way you read a contract after someone breaks it. The unauthorized charges were worse up close. The steakhouse in Ridgemont, $187, was Sawyer's, Vanessa's favorite spot. The spa, $680, was a mother-daughter package at Lavender Day Spa. Gloria and Vanessa, side by side, getting facials with my debit card while I was at work scheduling freight shipments. Then the Amazon orders, 6 of them in 8 weeks, totaling $614. I called Amazon's customer service. The shipping addresses were all the same: 14 Briar Lane, Ridgemont, Vanessa's house, a KitchenAid mixer, a set of patio string lights, a kid's outdoor playset. Items for a home I'd never been invited to visit. $3,200. Not borrowed, not discussed. Taken, quietly, steadily, like someone siphoning gas from a parked car overnight. Then I pulled the bigger picture. 5 years of bank records. I made a spreadsheet with 2 columns. What I gave, and what I got back. The first column filled fast. Car insurance premiums for Dennis and Gloria. 14 months at $185 a month, $2,590. School supplies and clothes for Brooke and Chase, every August, roughly $1,200 total. Vanessa's flights home for Easter and Thanksgiving, and one emergency trip that turned out to be a concert, $2,800. Groceries for every family holiday I hosted or contributed to, $3,400. Gloria's dental crown, the water heater, the new back steps. It went on. The second column, what came back, had one entry. A $25 Applebee's gift card from Dennis on my 32nd birthday. Here's a test. If someone calls you family only when they need your wallet, you're not family. You're a funding source. But the money wasn't what hurt the most. It was the email I found next. The notification sat in my inbox between a shipping confirmation and a newsletter I never unsubscribed from. Subject line, booking modification request, status update. From the Padmasari Resort, Ubud. I opened it. 9 days earlier, someone had called the resort's front desk and requested the removal of 2 guests, Fiona Foster and Owen Foster, from reservation number PSR-202-47182. The caller asked that the remaining 4 guests be kept on the booking and the room configuration be adjusted accordingly. The request was denied. Reason: only the primary account holder could authorize changes to the reservation, and the caller could not provide the 6-digit confirmation code. The caller had identified herself as Mrs. Mercer. I read it twice, then a third time. Not because the words were complicated, but because I needed to be certain I wasn't filling in gaps that weren't there. I called the resort. A woman at the front desk confirmed. A caller with an American number had phoned on April 22nd, said she was traveling with the group, and asked to simplify the reservation by removing 2 names. When asked for the confirmation code, the caller hesitated, then said she'd call back. She never did. I thanked the receptionist and hung up. Vanessa hadn't acted on impulse. She'd gotten the resort name from the confirmation email I forwarded to Gloria at Gloria's request. She'd found the phone number. She'd rehearsed a cover story. And she'd called an international resort to erase me and my son from a vacation I had built from scratch. This wasn't a conversation that got out of hand. This was a project. With steps. With intent. With a timeline. They hadn't decided to exclude me 3 days ago. They'd been working on it for at least 9. Mrs. Mercer. My sister used her married name, as if that would make it harder to trace back to me. I called Darlene Kinney at 11 a.m. She picked up on the second ring, which is how I knew she was between clients. Darlene and I have been friends since college. She studied psychology while I studied supply chain management, and we bonded over dining hall coffee and a shared belief that most problems are just logistics problems with feelings attached. She's a licensed family therapist now. I trust her the way I trust my own hands. I need you to listen to something, I said, and then I told her all of it. The doorstep visit, the card, the charges, the booking modification, the $47,000 spreadsheet. She was quiet for 10 full seconds. Darlene is never quiet for 10 seconds. Fiona, she said, using someone's bank card without permission for 3 months isn't a family favor. That's fraud. Eat textbook. She's my mother. Which makes it worse, not better. She asked me one question that I've thought about every day since. In 5 years of paying for your family, how many times did anyone ask if you could afford it? I didn't have to think. Never. That's your answer, she said. You're not a family member to them. You're a line item. She told me to document everything, print the bank statements, screenshot the email from the resort, save the texts. Not to build a legal case, but to protect myself when Gloria inevitably rewrote the narrative. People like your mother don't remember events, Darlene said. They remember versions, and the version she tells will make you the villain. Before we hung up, she added one more thing. Call your Uncle Ray. Ask him about your Aunt Carol. Carol? What does Carol have to do with this? Just ask him. I didn't understand, but I would. I gave my mother one chance. I want that on the record. I called Gloria that evening after Owen was in bed. I kept my voice flat. No tears, no heat. Just questions. Mom, I looked at my bank statements. There are charges on my card from the last 3 months. Restaurants, a spa, Amazon orders. Did you use my card for those? Silence. Then, I'm your mother, Fiona. It's not stealing if it's family. I let that sentence sit. If you ever hear someone say that to you, I want you to pause and really listen to it. Break it apart. What they're telling you is that your money isn't yours, that your boundaries don't exist, that the word family is a skeleton key that opens every lock you've ever set. You spent $3,000 without asking me, I said. You make good money. Vanessa doesn't. I was evening things out. That's what mothers do. By taking from me without permission? After everything I sacrificed raising you and your sister. There it was again. The invoice for my childhood, pulled from the drawer whenever the conversation got uncomfortable. You turned out fine. You should be grateful. Vanessa has it harder. I asked the only question that mattered. Mom, did you plan to cut me from the trip before or after you started using my card? 5 seconds of dead air. In phone calls, 5 seconds is an eternity. This conversation is over, Gloria said, and the line went dead. She didn't deny it. She didn't explain the timeline. She just shut the door, the same way she always did when the truth got too close to the lock. When someone says, it's not stealing if it's family, right after you catch them spending your money, that's not love. That's an invoice dressed up as affection. I called Uncle Raymond the next morning. He's Gloria's younger brother, 58, retired electrician, lives 2 hours south in Wilmington. Ray is the kind of man who listens with his whole body and speaks only when he's sure. I've always trusted him. Hey, Uncle Ray, I need to ask you something. Darlene told me to ask about Aunt Carol. He went quiet. Then he exhaled, long and slow, like someone who'd been holding a breath for 2 decades. She did it to Carol too, he said, almost word for word. Ray told me the story. 20 years ago, Carol, Gloria's younger sister, was the family workhorse. She paid for their mother's nursing care, covered holidays, helped Gloria with rent when Dennis was between jobs. And then Carol met her husband, moved to Raleigh, and started building her own life. Gloria couldn't accept that. She told the rest of the family that Carol abandoned them. She stopped inviting Carol to Thanksgiving. She intercepted calls. She told relatives Carol didn't want to come when Carol was never asked. Carol was cut off for 15 years. She only reconnected with Ray 3 years ago, after a cancer scare made her pick up the phone. Your mother doesn't love people, Fiona, Ray said. She manages resources. And when a resource stops being useful, she cuts it off. Or she punishes it until it falls back in line. I asked why nobody stopped her. Because everyone who tried got cut off too. Before we hung up, Ray told me Gloria was planning a bon voyage barbecue the day before the flight, a party at her house for the extended family. He'd been invited. I'll be there, he said. And Fiona, whatever you decide to do, I'll back you. 20 years, same playbook, different daughter. But this time, the daughter had receipts. Owen came home from school that afternoon quieter than usual. He dropped his backpack by the door. He always hangs it on the hook. Always. And walked past me into the kitchen without saying hello. Hey, bud, how was school? He shrugged, opened the fridge, closed it without taking anything. Owen, what happened? He turned around and looked at me with those huge brown eyes. Mutt, and I knew before he opened his mouth that whatever he was about to say would be the thing that finished my patience for good. Mom, do Brooke and Chase really not like me? My chest locked. What? Grandma told me they don't want to see me, but I thought Brooke was my friend. She always plays with me at Grandma's house. She taught me that card game. He wasn't crying. He was worse than crying. He was confused. An 8-year-old boy trying to reconcile what his grandmother told him with what he knew to be true from his own lived experience. That's a cruel place to put a child. Owen, listen to me. Brooke loves playing with you. You know that because you've seen it. Grandma was wrong to say what she said. Then why can't we go with them? Because we're going on our own trip. Just you and me. And it's going to be the best trip we've ever taken. He hugged me. I held him. I smelled the school day smell of his hair, playground dust, and whatever soap the bathroom dispensers use. And I made the decision that had been building in my gut for 3 days. When they use your child as a weapon, when they tell an 8-year-old that his own cousins don't want to see him just to justify cutting his mother, you stop negotiating. You stop explaining. You act. That night, after Owen fell asleep, I sat at my desk and made 3 phone calls. The first one was to the airline. My son came home and asked me if his own cousins hated him, because my mother told him that. If you're watching this and you've ever had to explain to your child why a grandparent said something cruel, I see you. You're not overreacting. You're protecting your kid. If this story is hitting close to home, drop me a comment below. I read every one, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe. I share stories like this every week. Now, let me tell you what happened when I started making those phone calls. The first call was to the airline. I gave them the booking reference and asked to cancel all 6 tickets. The agent paused. All 6, ma'am? All 6. I rebooked 2. Same flight, same day, same departure time. Fiona Foster and Owen Foster. Window and middle. The refund for the other 4 tickets went to my new card, the one I'd had the bank issue that morning after reporting the unauthorized charges on the old one. The second call was to the Padmasari Resort. I canceled the 3-room reservation. No, I didn't want to reschedule. Yes, I was sure. The cancellation policy granted a full refund with 72 hours notice, and I was making the call with exactly 73 hours to spare. I rebooked 1 room at a smaller place called the Tirtasari Cottage, a boutique guest house near the Monkey Forest. Half the price. Ocean view from the terrace. Owen would love it. The third call was to the bank. I reported the unauthorized charges, $3,200 across 3 months, and asked for a fraud review. The representative walked me through the process carefully. Ma'am, these transactions were made by someone with physical possession of your card. If that person is a family member, are you comfortable proceeding with the investigation? I'm comfortable getting my money back, I said. I'm not pressing charges right now, but I want every dollar reversed and this card shut down. She processed the request. New card in the mail. Old card deactivated. 3 calls, 40 minutes. I didn't contact Gloria. I didn't text Vanessa. I didn't announce anything. I just undid what was mine to undo and rebuilt what was mine to rebuild. I didn't cancel to punish them. I canceled because it was mine to cancel. There's a difference, and by tomorrow, they'd learn it. The next morning, 2 days before the original flight, Vanessa texted me. 3 messages in a row, 11:14 a.m. Hey, can you send the resort Wi-Fi info? Todd wants to check work emails. 11:16 a.m. Also, can you send a little extra for the kids' spending money? Like $500? They want souvenirs. 11:38 a.m. And what's the shuttle schedule from the airport? I read them sitting at my kitchen table with a cup of coffee going cold. Owen was at school. The house was quiet enough to hear the clock. She wanted Wi-Fi passwords, shuttle schedules, $500 in pocket money. For children who weren't even on the trip. All from the sister she'd tried to erase from the reservation 9 days ago. I didn't reply. 12:02 p.m. Hello? We leave in 2 days, lol. We. She wrote we, the way you write it when the person you're texting isn't included. Casual? Obvious. She didn't even catch it. I set the phone face down and finished my coffee. Here's what I want you to notice. In 4 text messages, Vanessa asked for Wi-Fi access, spending money, and transportation logistics, in that order. She did not ask how Owen was doing. She did not ask how I was feeling after being told I wasn't welcome on my own trip. She did not acknowledge that anything had happened at all. That's how entitlement works. It doesn't just ignore the damage. It forgets the damage exists. Vanessa wasn't pretending she hadn't hurt me. She genuinely didn't register it. I was a service provider. Service providers don't have feelings. They have deliverables. $500 for souvenirs. On a trip I paid for but wasn't allowed to attend. If that doesn't make your blood pressure rise, check your pulse. I left her on red. She'd find out soon enough. The notifications started landing around 4 p.m. I was picking Owen up from school when my phone buzzed. Then again. Then 6 more times in rapid succession. I drove home, parked. He helped Owen with his backpack and sat on the porch to read them. Vanessa had apparently checked her email around 3:30, probably after I didn't answer her texts. What she found was a cancellation confirmation from the airline. Your booking has been canceled by the primary ticket holder. All 6 tickets. Gone. Within 20 minutes, the cascade started. 4:01 p.m., Vanessa called Gloria. 4:04 p.m., Gloria called Dennis. 4:09 p.m., Dennis called me. I let it go to voicemail. Fiona, honey, your mother is very upset. There seems to be a mix-up with the flights. Please call us back. I'm sure we can sort this out. A mix-up. My father, who stood on my porch holding my stolen bank card while my mother told me I wasn't welcome, called it a mix-up. 4:22 p.m., Gloria called me directly. Voicemail. Fiona Marie Foster. If you call me back right now, if you did this, if you actually canceled those flights, so help me. She didn't finish the threat. The voicemail cut her off at the time limit. 4:35 p.m. The resort sent a separate confirmation to all guests on the reservation. Your stay at Padmasari Resort has been canceled by the primary account holder. 4:41 p.m. Vanessa texted me one word. Seriously? 4:58 p.m. Gloria called again. I didn't pick up. By 9 p.m., my phone had 17 missed calls. 7 from Gloria, 5 from Vanessa, 3 from Dennis, 2 from Todd. I plugged the phone into the charger, turned the ringer off, and went to bed. I slept better that night than I had in months. Dennis showed up the next morning at 8, alone. No Gloria. He stood on the porch with his hands in his pockets. The same posture as 2 days ago, except this time his face wasn't red. It was gray. Can I come in? He asked. I opened the door. Owen was at school already. Early drop-off on Tuesdays. Dennis sat at my kitchen table. He didn't touch the coffee I poured him. For a minute, he just looked at the mug. I knew, he said. I know you knew, Dad. I saw the Amazon boxes showing up at Vanessa's. I saw the spa receipt on the counter at home. I knew your mother was using that card. And you didn't stop her. He looked up. His eyes were wet. You know how your mother is. That's not an answer, Dad. That's an excuse you've been using for 30 years. He flinched. Not big. Just a tightening around the jaw. The kind of flinch you develop after decades of choosing silence over confrontation. I recognized it because I almost became him. 5 years of writing checks and swallowing objections and calling it keeping the peace. I was 1 calendar year from turning into Dennis Foster. I'm sorry, Fiona, he said. I truly am. I believed him. I did. But an apology without a change in behavior is just a sound. Dad, I'm going to the barbecue tomorrow, and I'm going to tell everyone the truth about the card, the charges, the trip, all of it. You should be there, but I'm doing it whether you back me or not. He stood up, nodded once, walked to the door. Before he stepped outside, he paused. She's going to be very angry. She's been angry my whole life, Dad. I just stopped being afraid of it. He left without another word. Gloria called that evening. I picked up, not out of obligation, but because I wanted to hear what her last play would be. Every chess game has an end game, and Gloria had been running hers for decades. She opened with guilt. Do you have any idea what you've done to this family? I canceled a trip I paid for after being told I wasn't invited. Yes, I know what I did. You're punishing your own mother. I'm managing my finances, Mom. Something I should have done years ago. She shifted to threat. If you show up to the barbecue tomorrow and make a scene, I'll be there, I said. I won't make a scene. I'll state facts. A pause. She hadn't expected that. Gloria assumed I'd either explode or hide. Showing up calm with documentation wasn't in her playbook. She tried bargaining. If you rebook the flights tonight, right now, we can put this behind us. The whole thing. No one needs to know. There's nothing to put behind us, Mom. And there's a pattern that should have stopped years ago. You are tearing this family apart. No, I'm just not paying for it anymore. The line went quiet. I could hear her breathing, sharp, clipped, the way it gets when she's calculating her next move. But there was no next move. She'd used guilt, fear, and bargaining, and none of them worked. That left only one option she never uses: honesty. She didn't take it. "You'll regret this," she said. Then the call ended. I set the phone down and looked at Owen's suitcase by the front door. Sticker still on the front pocket. Passport on top. Tomorrow was the barbecue. Gloria thought she was hosting a going-away party. She had no idea she was hosting an intervention. The morning of the barbecue, I printed 3 things. First, my bank statements for the last 3 months. With every unauthorized charge highlighted in yellow, 12 transactions, $3,200 total, each one clear, dated, and attributed. Second, the email from the Padma Sari Resort. The booking modification request, denied, with the caller identified as Mrs. Mercer. Third, a single-page summary of every major payment I'd made to or on behalf of the Foster family over 5 years. $47,000 in one clean column, sorted by year and category. I didn't editorialize. I just listed the numbers. I put everything in a manila folder and set it on the passenger seat of my car. Owen came downstairs in a polo shirt and clean jeans. He looked at me. "We're going to Grandma's barbecue?" "Yes. And then tomorrow morning, we fly to Bali." He grinned. Wide, unfiltered. The kind of grin that makes you understand why people say kids are resilient. He didn't know what was about to happen at that barbecue. He just knew that tomorrow he'd see the monkeys. I called Darlene from the driveway. "I'm going to state facts," I told her. "That's it. No yelling, no accusations, just facts, and a folder. Are you sure you want Owen there? He deserves to see his mother stand up for both of us." Darlene paused. "Okay, call me after." I looked in the rearview mirror. My eyes were clear. My jaw was set. I wasn't nervous. For the first time in 5 years, I wasn't performing the role of the grateful daughter who writes the checks and says nothing. I was just a woman with receipts. I packed that folder the way some people pack a weapon, except mine had bank statements, not bullets, and it would do more damage. Gloria's backyard looked like a postcard. String lights draped between the oak trees, a long folding table covered with a red and white cloth, Dennis working the charcoal grill in an apron that said, "World's Best Grandpa." The smell of hickory smoke and marinated chicken hung in the late afternoon air. You'd think it was a celebration, and it was. Just not the kind Gloria planned. 22 people. I counted as I walked through the side gate. Uncle Raymond and Aunt Louise were at the far end of the table. 2 of my cousins, Megan and Brett, sat with their families nearby. 3 of Gloria's neighbors from the cul-de-sac. 2 women from Gloria's church circle, Joan and Phyllis, nursing lemonade in lawn chairs. Vanessa and Todd stood near the grill. Vanessa wore a linen sundress and oversized sunglasses. She saw me walk in, and her face did something complicated. Surprise, irritation, and a kind of tightening around the mouth that looked like someone bracing for impact. Gloria was carrying a bowl of coleslaw from the kitchen. She stopped mid-step when she saw me. For 1 second, just one, her composure cracked. Then she smiled, pivoted to Phyllis, and laughed at something nobody said. Owen broke away from me and ran straight to Brooke. "Owen!" Brooke jumped off the picnic bench and grabbed his arm. "Come see the fireflies by the fence." They ran off together, laughing, grabbing at the air, 2 kids who had no idea adults had been using their names as ammunition. I watched them for a moment. Brooke ran to Owen like he was her favorite person on earth. And that single moment undid every lie my mother had told. Uncle Ray caught my eye from across the yard. He gave me a small nod. Not encouragement, exactly. Acknowledgement. He knew what was coming. I sat down. The manila folder rested on my lap. Dinner was served at 6. Dennis carved the chicken. Gloria moved through the crowd like a hostess on a stage, refilling glasses, adjusting napkins, touching shoulders. She was performing, and she was good at it. At 6:20, she stood at the head of the table and tapped her glass with a fork. The conversations faded. "I want to thank everyone for coming tonight," she said, her voice carrying the warm, polished tone she saved for audiences. "Tomorrow, the Foster family is heading to Bali. 2 wonderful weeks of sun, sand, and family time. We are so blessed. Applause. Joan from the church circle clapped twice. Phyllis raised her lemonade. But her neighbor Rick leaned forward. All of you going? That's gotta be a pretty penny. Gloria gave her humble smile, the one she'd practiced in mirrors, the one that said generosity without saying who was actually generous. Family is worth every penny, Rick. I watched her from my seat at the middle of the table. She hadn't mentioned my name. She hadn't looked at me. To the crowd, I was furniture, present but irrelevant. Then Aunt Louise turned to me. Genuine warmth. Fiona, you must be thrilled. Bali is gorgeous. I've always wanted to go. The table shifted. Eyes moved toward me. Gloria's fork paused over her plate. Before I could respond, Gloria cut in. Fast, smooth, the way she always redirected conversations that threatened her script. Actually, Fiona decided not to come. She has work commitments. You know how it is? She looked right at me when she said it, and smiled. Work commitments. That was the story she'd built for 22 people. The lie she wanted to be the truth. She'd even rehearsed the delivery. Casual, sympathetic, the slight tilt of the head. I set my glass of water down. Slowly. Uncle Ray shifted in his chair, and I stood up. Actually, I said, I'd like to clarify a few things. The yard went still. Even the cicadas seemed to pause. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The table was long but narrow, and 22 people were close enough to hear a whisper. I planned this trip. Every detail, flights, hotel, activities, transfers. I researched it for 3 months and booked it under my name. I paid for all of it. 6 round-trip tickets, a 2-week resort stay, Nian and every activity on the itinerary. The total was $17,800. Silence. Rick set his fork down. Joan straightened in her lawn chair. 3 days ago, Mom came to my house and told me I wasn't invited. Dad was with her, holding my bank card. The same card I gave Mom 12 weeks ago for a medical copay. She never returned it. Instead, she used it for 3 months straight. Restaurants, a spa day, Amazon orders shipped to Vanessa's house. $3,200 in charges I never authorized. I opened the manila folder, pulled out the bank statements, handed them to Aunt Louise, who was closest. Every charge is highlighted. You can see the dates, amounts, and locations. Louise looked down at the pages. Her face changed, the polite smile dissolving into something sharper. And she passed them to Megan. Megan passed them to Brett. And 9 days before the trip, I continued, someone called the resort in Bali and asked to remove my name and Owen's name from the reservation. The resort denied it because only I, the account holder, could make that change. The caller identified herself as Mrs. Mercer. Every head at the table turned toward Vanessa. So I did what any reasonable person would do, I said. I canceled every booking, every flight, every room, because they were mine to cancel. Pause. Owen and I are flying to Bali tomorrow morning. Just the 2 of us. Gloria stood up so fast her chair rocked backward on the grass. How dare you? Her voice was sharp enough to cut glass. How dare you air family business in front of everyone? I didn't flinch. It stopped being private family business when you used my bank card to fund your lifestyle, Mom. Vanessa pulled her sunglasses off. Her cheeks were red. This is insane. That trip was supposed to be for the family, for the kids. Rick, the neighbor, leaned back and crossed his arms. But if Fiona paid for it, why wasn't she invited? Vanessa didn't answer. She looked at Gloria. Gloria looked at the coleslaw. Todd had been sitting motionless since I stood up. Now he pulled his phone from his pocket, tapped the screen twice, and stared at it for a long moment. Then he said, quietly, to no one in particular, "The flights are canceled. Hotel 2. He looked at Vanessa. I told you this would happen. Uncle Ray stood up from the far end of the table, and the yard was quiet enough that the legs of his chair scraping the concrete sounded like thunder. Gloria, he said, I've kept quiet about this for 20 years, but you did the exact same thing to Carol. word for word, cut her off, took what she gave, and told everyone she was the problem. I watched you erase your own sister from this family, and I'm not going to sit here and watch you do it to your daughter. Aunt Louise whispered, Gloria, you used that girl's bank card? Phyllis from church folded her napkin and set it on the table, the slow, deliberate gesture of a woman who has decided she's seen enough. Joan looked at her shoes. Then Dennis spoke, quietly, but everyone heard. She paid for all of it, every cent. I looked at my mother. She was still standing, but the performance was gone. Her face had lost its color, and her hands gripped the back of her chair. Not for authority anymore, but for balance. Mom, I said. My voice was steady. I'd practiced steadiness for 34 years. I have spent 5 years paying for this family's needs and being excluded from its decisions. I paid for your car insurance, Vanessa's school supplies, every holiday dinner, your dental work, $47,000 over 5 years. Not once did anyone ask if I could afford it. Not once did anyone say thank you. Gloria's mouth opened. Nothing came out. That stops today. I love you. I love Dad. I even love Vanessa, though she makes it remarkably difficult. But I will not fund people who don't respect me, and I will never, ever let anyone use my son as a weapon again. Telling an 8-year-old that his cousins don't want to see him, just to justify cutting me out, that's not family. That's cruelty with a holiday tablecloth over it. I closed the folder, tucked it under my arm. Owen, I called. He came running from the fence, Brooke half a step behind him. Brooke grabbed Owen's sleeve. Are you going to Bali? Owen looked up at me. I smiled. We are. Brooke turned to Vanessa. Mom, can we go too? Vanessa didn't answer. She was staring at the bank statements still making their way down the table. I took Owen's hand. We walked through the side gate, past the string lights, past the empty lawn chairs, past the grill where the chicken had started to blacken because no one remembered to flip it. I didn't look back. The meat burned on the grill. Nobody turned it. My mother's perfect party was over before the sun went down, and I learned what happened after I left from Uncle Ray, who called me that night. Gloria sat back down and tried to regroup. She's being dramatic, she told the table. She'll come around, she always does. Nobody agreed. Nobody nodded. The silence at that table, Ray told me, was louder than anything I'd said. Megan, my cousin, a paralegal in Charlotte, spoke first. Gloria, did Mom go through something like this too? Because I remember her and Carol not speaking for years, and Mom would never tell me why. Another cousin, Brett, jumped in. Dad mentioned something once. Said Gloria cut Carol off after she stopped helping with bills. The dominoes fell one by one. Family members who had their own fragments of the story, a comment overheard at Thanksgiving, a phone call that ended in tears. A holiday where someone was conspicuously absent started assembling them into a single picture. The picture looked exactly like what Ray had described, a 20-year pattern of resource management disguised as motherhood. Vanessa tried to stop the bleeding. She has money. We don't. It's not that complicated. Todd put his phone in his pocket and looked at his wife. Vanessa, stop. Just stop. It was the first time anyone in the family had heard Todd push back on Vanessa, and the silence that followed was the kind that rewrites relationships. Gloria retreated into the kitchen. Through the window, Ray could see her standing at the sink, both hands on the counter, head down. Phyllis and Joan left without saying goodbye. Rick shook Ray's hand on the way out and said, "That girl has more spine than anyone in this yard." Ray texted me at 9:47 p.m. "Proud of you, kiddo." I read it in Owen's bedroom, where he was already asleep, passport on the nightstand, suitcase packed, temple sticker catching the glow of his nightlight. The scramble started that same night. Vanessa and Todd went home and opened a laptop. Last-minute flights from Charlotte to Bali, with a connection through Doha or Singapore, were running $2,800 per person. For 2 passengers, that was $5,600 before resort, food, or activities. Todd pulled up their checking account. Vanessa pulled up their credit card balances. They couldn't afford it. They couldn't come close. Vanessa called Gloria at 10 p.m. "Mom, can you and Dad help pay? We need at least $3,000. Gloria's answer, odd according to what Dennis later told Ray, "We don't have that kind of money, Vanessa." And there it was, the quiet truth behind the whole arrangement. Gloria and Dennis were living on Dennis's pension and Social Security. They didn't have $3,000. They didn't have $1,000. The only reason they were going to Bali at all was because I was paying for it. The entire structure, the entitlement, the expectations, the casual contempt for the person holding the checkbook, rested on a foundation they couldn't build themselves. Vanessa's voice climbed. "You told me to call the resort. You said she'd never actually cancel. You said she always folds." "I didn't think she'd go this far," Gloria said. "Well, she did. And now, we have nothing." For the first time in 30 years, Vanessa and Gloria were on opposite sides of an argument. Because when the funding disappeared, the alliance had nothing left to hold it together. Todd, who had been quiet through most of this, said the thing Vanessa didn't want to hear. "We need to stop depending on your sister. We need to figure out our own money. Starting now." Vanessa hung up without responding. Funny how loyalty unravels when the money disappears. They weren't a team. They were codependents with a shared funding source, and the funding source just closed its account. Gloria called at 11 p.m. I was zipping Owen's carry-on, his Bali book, headphones, a stuffed monkey he'd named Professor Banana the week before. I answered, one last time. "You humiliated me," Gloria said. No hello, no preamble. In front of my friends, my church friends, my neighbors. "And do you understand what you've done?" I stated facts, Mom. If the facts are humiliating, that's not my problem. "You had no right." I had every right. It was my money, my trip, my bank card, and you took all three. She went quiet, then tried to bargain. A last-ditch play from a woman who'd spent her life getting the upper hand through guilt and leverage. "If you add us back to the flights, just your father and me, we can move past this." Move past what exactly? The $3,000 you spent on my card? The 5 years of payments you never thanked me for? Or the part where you told my 8-year-old that his cousins don't like him? Silence. "Mom, I reported the unauthorized charges. The bank is investigating. And I'm not pressing charges, but I want every dollar returned." "You reported your own mother to the bank?" "You used my card without permission for 3 months. What would you call it?" The longest pause of the conversation. I could hear the kitchen clock ticking behind her. "When you're ready to have an honest conversation," I said, "not a performance, not a guilt trip, an honest conversation about what happened and why, call me. I'll answer. But until then, I'm done being the family funding source that nobody respects." I hung up, set the phone on the counter. She called me ungrateful, dramatic, selfish. She used every word in her vocabulary except the only one that mattered. Sorry. Our alarm went off at 4:30 a.m. Owen was dressed before I finished brushing my teeth. He dragged his suitcase to the front door, the little blue roller with the temple sticker that had started all of this, and stood there in his sneakers, passport in one hand, Professor Banana in the other. "Mom, are we really going?" "We're really going, baby." The drive to Charlotte Douglas was quiet and dark. Owen fell asleep 10 minutes in, his face against the seatbelt, the Bali book open on his lap. I drove with the window cracked, the May air thick and warm. Check-in was smooth. 2 passengers, 2 boarding passes, window in middle, gate B17. At the gate, Owen pressed his face against the glass and watched the ground crew load luggage onto our plane. "That one might be ours," he said, pointing at every bag. When they called our boarding group, Owen walked down the jet bridge like he was crossing a finish line. And he found our row, climbed into the window seat, buckled himself in, and looked at me with an expression I will carry for the rest of my life. Pure, undiluted joy. The engines powered up. The plane taxied. Owen grabbed my hand. "Here we go, Mom." We lifted off. The runway shrank. The houses became dots. The town where I'd spent 5 years writing checks and swallowing silence disappeared beneath a layer of morning clouds. Somewhere below us, my mother was waking up in a house full of unanswered questions, and for the first time, I wasn't the one trying to answer them. My phone buzzed one last time before I switched to airplane mode. A text from Uncle Ray. "Have the best trip. You earned it." I turned the phone off. Airplane mode. A new mode of living. Owen opened his book. "Mom, look, the monkeys." Bali was everything the brochures promised, and nothing like the trip I'd originally planned. It was better, because it was ours. The Tirtasari cottage sat on a hillside above a rice terrace, with a terrace of its own where Owen and I ate breakfast every morning. Fresh fruit, pancakes, and coffee so strong it could restart a heart. Owen named our resident gecko Captain Sticky and checked on him every night before bed. On day 2, we went to the monkey forest. Owen had been dreaming about this since his 2nd grade classroom project, and the reality exceeded every sleep he'd counted down. A macaque climbed onto his shoulder and sat there, calm as a cat, while Owen stood frozen with his mouth open and his eyes the size of dinner plates. I took 14 photos. Every one of them is framed. Then we took a cooking class in Ubud. Owen wore an apron that hung past his knees and learned to make nasi goreng from a woman named Wayan, who told him he was a natural. He stirred the wok with both hands and a level of concentration I've never seen him give homework. We watched the sunset at Tanah Lot, the temple on the rock, the waves crashing around it, the sky turning the color of ripe mango. Owen held my hand and didn't say anything for a full minute. Then, "This is the best trip ever, Mom. $18,000 for 6 people, not a single thank you. $2,000 for 2 people, and every moment was worth every cent." I called Darlene from the terrace one evening. "How are you?" she asked. Like I should have done this years ago. The best boundaries are the ones you set before you're completely broken. Your worth isn't measured by what you give. It's measured by what you refuse to tolerate. 3 weeks after Bali. Here's where everyone landed. Gloria didn't call. Not once. No apology. No olive branch. No acknowledgement that anything she did was wrong. What she did instead was tell her remaining church friends that I'd stolen the family vacation out of spite. But the bank statements had already made the rounds. Megan forwarded them to 3 relatives, and by the end of the week, the version of events Gloria was selling had no buyers. In a small town, the truth travels faster than the liar. Phyllis and Joan quietly removed Gloria from the church planning committee. Not as punishment, they said scheduling reasons. But everyone knew. Vanessa sent one text message 2 weeks after the barbecue. "Can we talk?" I responded, "When you're ready to acknowledge what happened, all of it, yes." She didn't reply. I expected that. Dennis called twice. The first time, he apologized again. Longer, more specific. He named the things he'd been silent about. "I should have told your mother to give that card back the first week." The second time, he just asked about Owen. How was Bali? Did Owen see the monkeys? I told him everything. We talked for 40 minutes. It was the most honest conversation I'd had with my father in years. Dennis is the one person I left the door open for, not because he earned it, but because he was trying. Todd enrolled himself and Vanessa in financial counseling through their church. In first time in their marriage, they sat down with a real budget. I heard about it through Ray. As for me, I opened a new bank account, sole signatory, no authorized users. I joined an online support group for adults with controlling families. I stopped writing checks to people who never asked if I could afford it. Owen brought his Bali photos to school for show and tell. His teacher sent me a message. He is so proud. It's a Tuesday evening, 3 weeks after we came home. Owen is inside doing homework. I'm sitting on the front porch with a glass of sweet tea, watching the light go amber through the trees. My phone has 17 fewer contacts in it than it did a month ago. My bank account has a new number. My refrigerator has a new decoration. Owen came running out of the house 20 minutes ago holding a piece of paper. A drawing he made in art class. 2 stick figures, one tall, one short, standing on a yellow beach in front of blue water. Above them, a circle with rays coming off it. A sun. Below them, in careful second-grade handwriting, "My mom is my hero." He handed it to me without ceremony, the way kids hand you things that matter, quickly and with full trust that you'll know what to do with it. I pinned it to the refrigerator with a magnet, right next to the photo of Owen and the macaque on his shoulder. I look at it now through the kitchen window from the porch, the drawing and the photograph, side by side. The boy and the monkey, the boy and his mother, both of them grinning. I didn't win by being loud. I didn't win by being cruel. I didn't win by tricking anyone or pulling some elaborate scheme. I won by knowing what I was worth and refusing to accept anything less. If you're the person in your family who pays for everything and gets invited to nothing, I'm telling you right now, you are allowed to stop. You are allowed to walk away with your dignity and your child's hand in yours. That's not selfishness. That's not betrayal. That is the bravest, most loving thing you can do. For yourself and for the people counting on you to finally draw the line. You are worth more than what you give. Remember that. That's Fiona's story, but I know some of you have your own. If you've ever been the family payroll, the one who writes every check but never gets a seat at the table, tell me about it in the comments. I read every single one. And if this video gave you even a little bit of courage to set a boundary you've been putting off, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. There are more stories like this in the description below. Click the one that speaks to you. Thank you for watching. And remember, your boundaries aren't walls, they're doors, and you hold the key.